Hi, everyone, this is the Encyclopedia channel. This program will interpret a classic masterpiece Jane Eyre for you. This book can't just read the story, although its plot is not boring and even has suspense. But the thoughts revealed in this book, as well as the extremely delicate and beautiful writing, are more worthy of appreciation. So what values do the stories in Jane Eyre highlight? Why did Jane Eyre wait until Rochester was blind and had nothing to get together? How should we relate to women? I believe that everyone will understand after watching this video. The plot of Jane Eyre is roughly like this. Jane Eyre was born in a poor pastor family. Her parents died when she was young, she was abused by her aunt, and then she started to rebel against her aunt when she was 10 years old. From then on, my aunt never dared to underestimate her, but soon sent her to a boarding school with extremely poor conditions. At school, Jane Eyre was reprimanded by the teacher and bullied. The only person who could give her comfort was her good friend Helen, but Helen died of lung disease not long after. It is necessary to say a few more words here, and I personally think that the most delicate and appealing passage in the whole book is about Helen's death. The plot is roughly like this. That night, the seriously ill Helen already had a premonition that she would die, so Jane Eyre came to her bed. As a Christian, Helen has no fear, but still has a lifelong nostalgia, and she is reluctant to leave Jane Eyre, as if Jane Eyre can keep her from going to another world. So Helen said, "Don't leave me, Jane, I like you by my side," and Jane Eyre said, "I will stay with you, dear Helen, no one can drive me away." So Jane Eyre put with their faces buried in Helen's neck, both of them fell asleep. At dawn the next day, Miss Temple, who manages the dormitory, found that the two girls were hugging each other tightly. Jane Eyre was asleep, and Helen was dead. I will never forget this description. It expresses the sorrow of parting with our loved ones to the extreme. Back to the main line of the story. Many years after Helen died, Jane Eyre graduated from a boarding school and came to a rich family as a tutor. An air of mystery surrounds the family. Later she fell in love with the hero, Mr. Rochester, and the hero also fell in love with her. Just when they were about to get married, someone pointed out that Mr. Rochester was already married, and his wife turned out to be the mysterious mad woman locked up in the manor. So Jane Eyre resolutely left Rochester. She begged along the way, went through hardships, and finally fell ill on the road. Later, Jane Eyre was rescued and taken in by a pastor named John, and then taught in a local elementary school. John, actually Jane Eyre's cousin, proposed to Jane Eyre. Although Jane Eyre was grateful to him but did not love him, she finally left John. At the end of the novel, Jane Eyre returns to Rochester's manor, which has been set on fire by the mad woman and turned into ruins. The mad woman then fell to her death, and Rochester was blind. Jane Eyre found him, and felt that the two were equal at this moment, and they came together with him. The character of Jane Eyre is actually the incarnation of the author Charlotte Brontë herself. She was a British female writer in the early 19th century. Charlotte's father was a poor priest, and although her mother came from a wealthy family, she died when she was very young. The three Brontë sisters were sent to a boarding school with very strict rules and poor living conditions as described in the book. Many children there fell ill and died, or became weak for life. Charlotte's sister died of illness in it. She is the prototype of Helen in the novel. Charlotte came out of school, ran a school by herself, and worked as a tutor. For the profession of governess, Charlotte feels hardship and humiliation, which is the reason why she always expresses her desire for equality in the novel. During this time, two people proposed to Charlotte. One was the brother of a female friend of hers, and the other was a young priest. These two people are the prototypes of Pastor John in the novel. Charlotte didn't agree, because she felt that those two people didn't really love her, they just wanted to marry a wife and have children. Comparing the experiences of Charlotte and Jane Eyre, you will find that they are highly similar. Charlotte wrote this book to express her thoughts on marriage, women's social status, and the value of life through the character of Jane Eyre. But you may not know that 150 years ago, few women published books in British society, so the book Jane Eyre was first published in 1847, using even a masculine character like Cole Bell. Pen name. Although the status of women today has undergone earth-shaking changes compared to Charlotte's time, the women's values insisted on in the book Jane Eyre, specifically, the sense of fairness, equality, and independence are still ours. The basic values of modern women recognized. And we feel that men who want to get along better with women should understand that too. 1. Awareness of fairness. And not only consciously, but also know how to resist. Jane Eyre started from rebelling against her aunt at the age of 10, then she rebelled against bullying at school, and rebelled against the unfairness of social prejudice to women. She has been working hard in this regard. In fact, how to deal with bullying and unfair treatment is a problem that every child in school, young people in the workplace and society, and middle-aged people who cannot afford to work overtime must face. For example, the reaction to a slap as a child determines a person's later fate. In fact, even in the West, a strong sense of fairness and self-awareness has not always existed. It can be seen from the book Jane Eyre that the heroine with this consciousness was also different at that time. But it is precisely because there are people like Jane Eyre in the society that the sense of fairness is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people today. 2. Awareness of equality. In love and marriage, both parties must be equal in order to go far. This equality is not only the attitude towards oneself and the other party, but also based on the conditions of both parties. If one party is a towering tree and the other is a small grass, even if the former expresses a willingness to be equal, even if the latter requests equality, it will be difficult to achieve equality. This equality does not lie in the material and external conditions of both parties, but in the mind and soul. The most famous passage in the book Jane Eyre is what Jane Eyre said when she left Rochester in chapter 23. "I told you I had to go," I retorted, a little impulsively. "Do you think I'll stay and be content to be nothing to you? Do you think I'm a machine without feelings? Can bear a morsel of bread to be snatched from my mouth, throw a drop of the water of life out of my cup? Is it because I am poor, obscure, plain, and small, that I am soulless and heartless? Aren't you mistaken? My heart is with you as rich as you are, my heart is as full as yours. If God had gifted me with some beauty and plenty of wealth, I would have made you as inseparable as I am now, not by custom, conventionality, nor even flesh and blood. Speak, but my spirit conversing with your spirit, as if both had passed through the grave, and stood at God's feet, equal as it is." Jane Eyre's principle of fairness and equality between men and women, even today, not everyone can adhere to it, especially women. This inequality will not affect people's passionate love, but it will affect people's marriage. Jane Eyre knows this very well, and a marriage obtained by climbing high will not have a good result, because then she is just an insignificant person in the marriage. Although she is poor and looks mediocre, she is as rich in heart as the upper class. What she needs is not pity, but a dialogue of the soul. When she found that her status could not allow her to do this, she chose to leave, although she showed great reluctance. At the end of the novel, Rochester almost lost everything and became blind. At this moment, Jane Eyre felt that her ugly duckling was finally equal to her sweetheart. So they walked together. 3. A sense of independence. Jane Eyre came from a humble background, didn't have many friends, and often lived in a difficult life, but she always had a sense of independence and assertiveness, and insisted on holding her destiny in her own hands. In any era, the situation of most people is actually similar to that of Jane Eyre, but the thoughts and behaviors of different people are very different. At that time in Britain, many women were keen to fish for golden turtles, and there were many social activities held for this purpose at that time. Many future mothers-in-law only care about the man's surname, not what kind of person the man is. While climbing high, these women also lost their grasp of their own destiny. However, as women become more and more independent financially, there are also women who are unwilling to make do with marriage. If they can't find a suitable one, they simply don't marry for life. However, Charlotte disagrees with these two approaches. On the one hand, she pursues the happiness of marriage, and on the other hand, she insists on her independence. Charlotte's wisdom in life also lies in her understanding that gratitude and love are two different things. In the book, Pastor John saved Jane Eyre and helped her, but she didn't love John. Therefore, when John proposed to Jane Eyre refused decisively. In our lives, we will find that many people are confused about the difference between gratitude and love. In our opinion, a person cannot marry another person just because others treat you well and often help you. Jane Eyre is a kind person, but she doesn't wrong herself because she is grateful to the other party. Many tragedies in the world are caused by confusing gratitude with love. People should not enter into a marriage because of temporary loneliness, and then cause loneliness for a lifetime. In short, after the book Jane Eyre came out, it received a lot of praise, mainly because it first talked about the issue of women's equal status in marriage. Later, with the improvement of the status of women all over the world, the status of this book is also getting higher and higher. As a thoughtful and cultured woman, Charlotte not only raised questions, but also gave her answers, a sense of fairness, independence, and equality, and always hold destiny in her own hands. Of course, Charlotte's ideas apply not only to marriage, but to any relationship where inequality may exist. To expand, everyone can also use this principle to re-examine the relationship between themselves and the unit. Individuals seem to be the weaker side, but if they can insist on independence and appeal for fairness, even if they encounter some temporary difficulties, they will be proactive in the long run. If you rely too much on an organization, you will fall into passivity, and you will get used to this passivity. This is the end of this episode of the show. What do you think about it differently? Welcome to leave a message to discuss with everyone. Hey, if you like our channel, please subscribe us. Haha, remember to like it.